Okay, so morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the School Messenger demo. This is our first of a series of 4 demos that we're doing via YouTube Live for anybody who cannot join us. And we're joined in person by Jeremy Doberstein, and we're also joined via phone by Stephen Anderson. So I will step out and let Jeremy take over.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Doberstein. I'm the Region Director for West, or as you might know, School Messenger. I'm based out of Chicago. My colleague Stephen is based out of North Carolina, but was in Houston yesterday. And with the weather and everything else, things just got a little crazy. He just headed home. So he's going to join us remotely. And both of us have some time experience in the educational realm. And what we'd like to do today is just kind of talk about our platform, our response to your website RFP, answer any questions. Hopefully we'll cover all the bases. I'm going to have Stephen do the presentation. We both have the rubric. We'll kind of go through it as best we can, step by step. And I'll be checking the boxes here too. So I've given him my introduction. I guess I want to just go around the room if I can and just get your name and your title. That helps us understand who we're talking to a little bit. If you want to add any more, I'd be happy to. I guess we'll start over here because we've met already.
That's right. We feel like you're right. Yes. So Kim Brown is the Director of Learning.
Okay, Kim.
Katie Neiman, Communications Director.
Matt Callahan, Technology Integration Coach. Luke Simonson, I do customer service improvements at the IT.
Super.
Abby Cornell, Secretary of the Elementary Schools.
Matt Schmidt, Project Manager with IT.
Okay.
Gail Aronson, Counseling Office Secretary of High School.
Excellent.
Rachel Bauer, SAS Manager for the entire district.
And the SIS is,
Student Information Systems.
I know, but it is Infinite Campus.
Yes, Infinite Campus, yeah.
All right, I was just curious.
Christy Levy, Building Principal.
Excellent. And
Dave Dunlop, Deputy Superintendent.
excellent. Super. So Stephen, hopefully you got all that. The plan today, we're going to dive deep into your RFP. We've both read it. Stephen and I both have responded. Stephen was part of the response a little bit, but I was primarily in response to that. So I can address all pricing concerns. I can address really anything dealing with the process. Stephen is the product expert, right? And so I like to bring him in when you say, hey, can we really dive deep into this? He's the guy for that. A little bit about School Messenger, just quickly. Founded in 1999, a lot of your colleagues, a lot of you may have used even School Messenger for the notification side of things. I know Oshkosh doesn't right now, but that's where we were founded, and it's evolved. I mean, we've come a long way. Part of what we've needed and what we've wanted is a universal solution or a unified communication tool for our schools. So a lot of people have adopted that. We don't enforce that. I mean, we're not here to talk about other platforms today. But just so you know, it's evolved. We acquired an organization that did website hosting a few years ago. You probably already know schools like Appleton, Wausau, those were districts that were already on this platform. We saw it, we could use it. We've since adopted other school districts like Green Bay and various others in the state. But West is our parent company. And if you've never heard of West, it's not a surprise. We joke, West is the largest communication company. Sometimes nobody's ever heard of it. And companies like AT&T, Verizon are our customers, right? Just a very large communication conglomerate. Goes everywhere from E911 to, the Ellen DeGeneres show is hosted by West, right? Her YouTube channels, things like that. School Messenger, just the education division, okay? So you're not calling a support line that says press 1 if you're with a utilities company, press 2 if you're with, whatever. So we work with a lot of very large school systems. If you want to put that into consideration, I mean, we're not just local, unfortunately. I'm local. We're not all local. But that experience and that bandwidth is required when we're dealing with something like a website where we need to be up a lot. And our implementation team is focused on your needs and the website. When we talk about our team, since we are a notification company first, we are emergency alerts, right? 24/7, 365 support. Anyone on your staff can call us for technical support at any time. With the website, there is also a 5-minute support guarantee. We don't meet that guarantee when your team calls us for assistance. We grant back a period of free support. Now, we are based out of the United States. I get this question a lot. Where are you based out of, right? We are based out of the United States. We do have offices in Canada. We're the largest provider of communication products in the K-12 world in the US and Canada. My corporate office is in Scotts Valley, California, but we have regional offices in St. Louis, Joplin, Toronto. So you can consider that as well, different time frames and zones. Customer portals, training is always included. I know these are just kind of housekeeping items, but training, we do include all training for your staff, ongoing. I just had a district in Michigan tell me, Jeremy, I don't think we need any more web-based training because your video blogs and everything else on your Resource Central site is so good. We can copy those videos, put them on our intranet. Our staff have them when they come on board. So not that we don't encourage training, but it's free. So you can do one-on-one trainings. We have trainings that you can register for that are pre-scheduled. Initially, we're going to hold your hand and do whatever kind of trainings you want one-on-one with your staff. Green Bay, they recorded their trainings. They put their trainings on their web or on their intranet. And then when their new staffs come in, they're taught through the intranet how to use the website. Just one other way you can do it. And that's it. So I'm going to skip to the back of the room here a moment. So those of you on video, I'm going to give the controls to Stephen and let him do a quick introduction and kind of talk about the website here.
Thanks, Jeremy, and again, I appreciate everybody's time today to go a little bit deeper into our present website CMS product. As Jeremy said, I'm Stephen Anderson. My official title is National Director of Education Solutions Engineering, which is just a big, long, fancy title for nerd. I came to West about 4 years ago and came out of K-12. So I actually sat where you sat. I was a teacher for 11 years. I taught middle school math and science. My bachelor's degree is in middle grade math and science. My master's degree is in instructional technology with a focus on blended learning. I was the director of instructional technology and director and chief technology officer for the 3rd largest district here in North Carolina, where I'm based. So I've sat in the same kinds of rooms that you all are sitting in, and have had the same sorts of conversations. So I think between Jeremy and I think we bring a pretty unique perspective to be able to talk about websites and our solution. So I have your rubric that we're using today. What I'd like to do is tackle each one of these categories and go through each one of these individual areas that you have. On some of these, we'll be able to talk about them in combination, but certainly we'll make sure that we check off, and that's why I'm glad Jeremy is there to be able to check off these as we go, so we don't make sure that we don't miss anything. Is that okay if we just go section by section, category by category?
Yeah. Stephen, can you share your screen one more time? I apologize. I was confused at PowerPoint.
No worries. No, I wondered what you were doing. No worries. I got it back up there. So in this first section on functional requirements, it's a good place to start to talk about the system as a whole. So you're utilizing Google Sites right now, and Google Sites serves a really good purpose. It's a very easy to use, quickly, easily designed website that you can get content up and out into the public space pretty easily. When you start talking about some of the features that school districts need in terms of, I'm really big on helping districts and schools communicate their story and really fundamentally try to change the way that the web presence is used for school districts to do that. Google Sites falls a little bit short. And so you're asking all the right questions about, how the website works, because ultimately that's the key, right? If you have, a site can be beautiful and it can look great, but if it's really difficult to use, If it's really hard to maintain, then that beauty kind of just doesn't matter anymore because the content doesn't get updated and it feels old and stale. So it's important to be able to consider those types of things. And so what you find with our presence websites is that they are the easiest to use solution that's out there. We like to talk in training about how, you know, the only skill set that users need to come to us with is the ability to turn on a computer and send an email or to write a document. That everything is built with the end user in mind in order to be able to edit that content. So if I'm going to go out and I'm going to edit a page, so I'm just going to I've just got a page here that I've built, and I need to make some changes to it. So I want to add some new content. Perhaps I want to add a video. I want to add some additional types of content. I can do that very, very easily. We utilize a process called true inline editing. And so every user, no matter what their permission level is or what site they're on or what page they're on, is going to utilize our true inline editing, meaning that there's no back end for users to go into. The only back end, so per se for the website, is those who have super user access, who are going to be managing users or managing groups, perhaps some other system administration functions that we'll talk about later. But for your department folks who are maintaining those instructional pages, or for transportation or your food service or your schools or your teachers, they're going to be doing everything on the page. And what benefit that provides is that I'm going to be able to truly know what my page is going to look like before I ever publish it. So I'm not having to preview that in an additional mode. I'm not having to look at that in another browser window to see what it's going to look like. I know that when I hit publish, that's what my content is going to look like. Now, in terms of permissions, users can come from a variety of sources. So we support LDAP, we support SAML, we support Google. We can do it in any type of combination. So if you've got, I know some districts will have some users in Google, some will be in LDAP, whatever that combination is that you want to get users into the system for both viewing and editing, we can support that. The other interesting thing about that as well is that, we can also read all the way down into your OUs and your security groups to apply individual types of permissions. So for example, on the viewer side of things, if you've got pages that you want to keep hidden from the general public, say for a staff intranet, then based on who that person is in your directory service, we can automatically populate them into a group that has the appropriate permission for them to be able to view those pages. So it creates a lot less work on your end, where you're already maintaining the directory service and you know who your users are. That allows us to feed off of that to apply those particular viewer permissions. The same thing with editing permissions. So as users at an individual school are added to that school in the directory service, well, then they would automatically become a viewer of that school, and then we can also apply individual editing permissions in that way as well. So again, trying to make it as easy as possible to not only get things up and going very quickly, but to be able to be easy to maintain. So I have permission to edit the page that I'm on, and the reason I know that is because I have this design we call our design mode toolbar. Whenever I sign in to the website and I have access to edit a page, I'm going to get this toolbar on pages that I have the rights to edit. That's another thing to keep in mind too, is that users can have multiple types of permissions based on the types of pages that you want them to be able to edit. So while in this case I'm just looking at a set of perhaps what we would think of as a teacher page, or it could be a division page or a department page, I could have the rights to edit just one page in there, all of the pages in there, and that those permissions can follow me to other sites as well. So let's say I'm an athletic director, where I might have the ability to edit the athletic page on the high school site, but I'm also helping to maintain some athletic pages on the middle school site. Those permissions can cross over different sites as well without having an additional login, without having another set of permissions. I can apply them equally across the site. But in terms of editing, I'm going to turn my page into what we call design mode. And what this is going to do is this is going to give me some additional functionality to actually design the page or to actually add content to the page. The first thing that we'll look at is these squares at the top. These are what we call portlets. A portlet is our content blocks that get added to the page to be able to create content very easily. So instead of having to code certain types of content, I can simply drag it onto the page. So if I want to add, say, if I want to add a calendar to this page, I simply drag that calendar portlet onto the page, and a new calendar renders, and I have a brand new calendar that I can go ahead and put events on. If I want to add other types of content, any user can add a photo banner. We've got document containers. We've got photo galleries, upcoming events, all of these different types of portlets that allow you to easily create content in a very visually appealing way by just dragging it onto the page. Once the blocks are on the page, they're all drag and drop. So if I want to move content around, if I'd rather have the calendar at the top of the page, then I simply just drag it to the top of the page. We can also change the layout of this page. So if I want to change, right now I'm in a single column view, but if I want to put it in a 2-column view, a 3-column, a 1 over 3, whatever you want, I can easily just click, whichever one I want to do, update that page, and it will automatically move my content for me into those areas. And so I'm not having to worry about losing content. I'm not having to have to recreate anything. I'm just merely having to change the page layout and then organize my content through the drag and drop in that way. We can also minimize these blocks. So if I want to, one of the things we emphasize during training with all of our users is that the site keeps copies of everything that every user does. And so we'll talk about page histories in a moment, but we stress the need to never have to delete anything because there may be an opportunity where you might want to reuse that content. You might want to bring that content back for a particular purpose. So we have what we call minimizing of content. So you see I've minimized that calendar. I've got another minimized area here. When I'm not in design mode and actually looking at the live page, as an end user, I would never know that content ever existed. But as a content editor, I know that content is there waiting for me if I ever decide to come back and use it. Now, if I know for certain I'm not going to use it, I can delete that. That portlet or that content area. We have big, large messages that say, hey, just remember, if you do this, it's gone forever. Even deleting this content link is smaller. Then they even have to enter a code in order to delete that content. And again, that's just to make sure that they understand that deleting it is permanent, that we rather than minimize that content on the page, just in case they need to come back and use it. And that content will stay there for the life of the page. There's no limits on how much content they can have on a page or how much, how many portlets are minimized. But when I'm ready to edit, say I've got this nice big content block here with a photo and things like that in there. If I need to, I want to come in and edit, I simply just click. And this is where our inline editor and our inline editing comes in. Is I'm actually physically editing this block, but I'm doing it in the view on the page. I'm not having to go into a separate editor. I'm not having to fill out a separate form. And then when I want to make that change, I simply just type what I want to say. So I can say, Stephen is amazing, be awesome today. You can see I've got a toolbar here at the top, and that toolbar is to replicate those types of text formatting and other features that users are comfortable with. So in this case, if I want to bold this object, I simply use my bold button. If I want to underline it, I use my underline. If I want to italicize, I can italicize. It's the same sorts of features that users should be very familiar with to edit content. And even if I don't know what something does, I can simply hover over it, and the button will tell me what it does. This toolbar is customizable by the district. So if there are certain features on this toolbar that you don't want users to have access to or not use, you can simply turn them off on the system administration side so that users don't have access to them. A good example of that is this clip art button. We see some districts would rather their end users use actual images rather than clip art. And so just by clicking a box in the editor on the system administration side, we can remove that button for users as well. You can also set defaults here too. So for example, fonts, we only support accessible fonts. So fonts that have consistent spacing between the letters, fonts that are easily read by screen readers. And so there's these are the ones that I have turned on for this site that I'm on. There are a couple more. If you have your own custom fonts that you built, as long as they're accessible, those can be applied to the site. But perhaps you want to keep a consistent branding across all of your sites. You want to have and make sure that there's consistent look and feel of the text across the site. We can set that as a default and then turn this font box off in the editor, and then users would not be able to change the font through the editor. Even if they went to the HTML, they wouldn't and entered in their own HTML font. It would not. The system would override them according to the default. Now, some other thing, that's editing text. What about some other features in here? Say, bringing in content from other sources. So we know that some users like to create content in Word and they like to copy and paste, but we know that Word has a lot of the CSS that's attached to it. When you put it into another program that has CSS, the formatting can become can become off in a sense. So we have a paste from Word button where user can come in and actually paste the content into this box, and we'll strip out all of the CSS formatting and actually format it for the website. But the system is smart enough that when if they were to ever paste that into a content block, the block would say, "Hey, you look like you're pasting from Word. Do you want us to remove that formatting for you?" So they can either paste it into the content block or use the paste from Word button. Even the embedding of content. So we have, paste as HTML. So if I've got embeddable content that I want to put in, I don't even have to go into the HTML, because one of the problems, as we know, with HTML is figuring out where does that content actually go. So if I'm trying to insert something from a third-party source, then where actually do I put it in here? And this can be very off-putting, especially to users who aren't familiar with it. And so again, trying to provide those tools that make it easy to insert content, even something like a video. So I've got a video here. Pause that for a second. So I've got a video here of my favorite race car driver in a commercial, and I'm going to come back over to the website, and we can bring in third-party video easily without having to use, typically on a YouTube video or other areas, you have to come to share and you have to grab the embed code. And like we just saw, where does that code, as the end user, where does that code actually go? Instead, I can simply grab the URL for the video, place my cursor where I want that video to go, and use our insert external video button here, where I can insert that as a URL, and that will pull the video over into this area. I can set the aspect ratio. I can set what width, even additional types of functionality. I save that, and that video embeds directly into my page without ever having to copy the embed code or bring that, figure out where that is going to go into the content block for that. It's not just videos that we can do that with, even things like images. So one of the most interesting things as you're looking at and comparing vendors today is to think about not just the functionalities of the website, but what the website actually gives you in terms of pages and storage and those types of things. And one of the things that we offer that no one else, that we don't believe anyone else offers, is you get unlimited pages and you get unlimited storage for your website. So, when I was, my district, I had 86 schools and I had 60,000 students. I had 10,000 teachers. My teachers were limited to 500 megabytes on their website because it was very expensive at the time for the provider that my district was using to give additional space to users. So they were limited in how much content a teacher or a department could put onto their website. In our case, we don't do that. We don't want folks to feel limited in the amount of content that they can include on their site. So you get unlimited storage. and you get unlimited pages to add. So you can have as many pages as you want in any type of combination, hidden or archived or active or what have you. But for storage, say on images, every user gets this image manager that follows them around the website. So in the case of if you have users who are on 2 different sites, this image manager will follow them around. So they're not having to upload multiple different places. They're doing it one place in order to be able to access that content anywhere. I can create my own folder structure. So if I want to create a new folder, I can simply add a new folder. When I want to bring, in this case, an image in, I can upload from my local machine, and so I can select, where's that image sitting. Lots of different file types are supported that I can use, but I can also use third-party sources. So again, rather than embedding that content, we can just use our cloud file picker, which supports multiple different types of third-party areas in order to bring that content in. I just simply connect via secure API. That actually logs me out of the service when I log out of the website and connect to that service and bring that content in, so that I have I can not only, the content can come from other locations rather than just my local machine. And it's not just a link to, it's a copy of. So if I bring a photo over from Google Photos, I'm actually making a copy of it into my image manager so I can use it anywhere. But once I have an image in, then I can see that, yeah, this looks great. Maybe I want to, maybe it's rotated the wrong way. Maybe I need to do some minor editing. And again, we have our inline image editor. So again, I'm not having to leave the site to edit that image. I'm not having to go anywhere additional. I can do it all directly in where I am. I can make that smaller. I can rotate it around. Users who are used to Photoshop are going to continue to use that functionality outside of the system to edit their photos. But for the regular, everyday user of the website who's going to maybe perhaps manipulating images or photos, this provides some basic functionalities of making it smaller, making it larger, cropping, rotating, even adding text over that image. I can be able to do all of that in line. Then I can save this as a new file, because again, we're not dealing with file size limits or file storage limits. We can create as many copies of this photo as we want to put into the system. Once I'm ready to insert that image, I'm going to hit the insert button, and it's gonna warn me if I haven't done something first. And part of our commitment of our website, not only to ourselves but our customers, is a commitment to accessibility and ensuring accessibility across our sites. And so one of the ways that we can help you accomplish that is we require alt text on all images that come into the website. So here I'm inserting that image into the editor. I may be entering it into a banner. I may be entering it into a photo gallery. Every time I put an image in, I'm going to be required to enter alt text. And we have on our training side, our trainers have been specially trained in accessibility and talking about accessibility. They're actually accessibility certified to be able to have those conversations. And this is one of the things that we'll do, is have this conversation about what is alt text. It's not just a matter of putting alt text into that box. It's a matter of what is good alt text. How does that image accurately describe what that photo is, what that image is of, to someone who may be visually impaired? And so I have to put in alt text into this area, North Carolina coastal landscape. And once I insert that, that's going to go into my editor that I'm editing. I can change that around. Once I'm happy with that, that looks good, and I'm ready to continue editing content. Now, if I get called away and I'm not ready to publish, there's some additional things I need to do, I can simply hit the save button, and that is going to save that content. And you can see, even in regular viewing mode, I'm back to the way that was before I started editing. But once I'm ready to come back and I want to edit that content that I inserted in is right there ready for me to publish. And once I'm ready to publish, I simply hit publish, and that content is now live on my website. There's no waiting around for content to hit the server and to be distributed out. It's an automatic update. It's an automatic change to that page, no matter the type of content that's inserted there. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice here is this this clock. And so what we're able to do is, since we have unlimited storage limits for our website, we can actually provide histories of not only pages. So I can do a page level history if I want to change the whole look of a page and go back to a previous point in time. But one of the things that I as a teacher would have found especially helpful is, and rather than changing my entire page, maybe there was just a part of a page I needed to change. Say this content block, I needed to go back to a different look in time. What we have is we have what we call portlet level history, or the history of a particular content area on a block. And so I can look at whatever version I'm on. So right now I'm on version 49. I can see who the owner was, which is me, when it was created today at 9:29, and that's the live version. I can see that is indeed the version that I'm on right now. But what if I want to go back to one, say, back in December? So I can go all the way back to December, December 21st of last year. I can look at those side by side and see, hey, this is the current version. This is the version I'm thinking about going to. Which one do I want to keep? You know what? That version 30 is good, but maybe I want to go back even further. The user can go back all the way back to when that content was first put on the page, to that first version. And they're not having to do anything additional here. Every time they hit the save button or the preview button, that is going to get saved into this history area for me to be able to bring that content back. So that version 30 is the version that I want. I'm going to go ahead and make live. And what you're going to see is my page is going to refresh in the background really quickly. And now that content that I brought back is there waiting for me in order to edit. So we can do page level history. We can do portlet level history. We've got a lot of different ways so that users aren't having to have to worry about losing content. They can also release content on a particular schedule. So maybe they've got a page on their site that they want to release at a particular time. So maybe I've got my blog. We'll just use my blog as an example. I want to release it, say today, or I want to release it until. I can do these. I can release it on, or I can release it until, or I can do both. So if I have a time-sensitive page that only needs to be active for 2 weeks, I set the time for 2 weeks, and then that page will turn on, and that page will then turn off after that time is there, all the way down to the actual minute that you want that page to either turn on or turn off. And I can see a list of what pages I have beneath my main page as to what their release schedule is. So again, making it easy for the users to be able to create and maintain additional content in that way.
Hey, Stephen, since we're on the topic of data and version history, and since it's the next item here, I know we skipped a couple, but disaster recovery, why don't we just mention that really quick about, if I delete something, what happens?
Yeah, that's why we have those big red boxes. So, we hit hard that when content is deleted, it is deleted. Now, we can recover that content for until that evening when the site goes into when we're actually making a copy of that site and storing it. We could, if someone were to delete something and you were to call us within the hour, we could bring it back. There would be a fee for that, because we have to roll the entire website back in order to get that content back. So there would be a fee associated with that. In terms of disaster recovery, the sites are backed up every night. We do physical backups, and we do cloud-based backups both. So we have multiple different types of backups to be able to revert to. And if there was some issue somewhere that, would cause that we would need to rely on those backups, we have those nightly backups available to be able to roll those back.
Can I jump in and ask a question? So if I permanently delete something, it's not going to be in my content history to just roll back?
It will not. Like this portlet, if I was to delete this portlet, it's going to delete the portlet and all of the content history along with it. That's why we stress the minimization of content. It is possible that there are some states, Washington State being one, where the rules around archiving content on the website are a little more strict based on at the state level, we do have the ability through the CSS to be able to remove these X's so that they can't, the end user would never ever see the delete button. It's not something we typically do for everyone, but if that was of a concern and you had a policy concern around that, like, hey, our district policies or our state policies require us to keep everything forever. We can't have users deleting anything. It is possible for us to alter this main CSS of the editor for us to do that, to be able to remove those delete buttons if you thought that would be an issue. Some specialty portlets that we have here. One is the staff directory portlet, and what that does is, instead of maintaining staff directories that you build on your side, maybe it's a table, which we know tables aren't accessible. You're maintaining an uploaded PDF, which PDFs might not be accessible. We actually have a visual staff directory that can be in pretty much, you can create it in any kind of combination you want. Here I've just got it as a staff directory. These users are being populated automatically based on the group that they're in, which the group is being populated based on the data that you send us from your directory service. And so what we say is that, and what we can do is that if you're maintaining the users on your end, the staff directories will be automatically updated according to your user database. So you're not having to physically go in and maintain users. If you have a teacher who retires, or they, in the middle of the year, and they need to come off of the staff directory list, as soon as you move them out of your staff directory or out of your Active Directory or your directory service, or you inactivate them, it will pull them out of the staff directory here. And again, the staff directories can come in really any kind of combination that you want to be able to display whatever types of information you want. In this case, I've got a couple groups on my site that I could display. I can also hand select other groups as well. So if I have other groups that I want to display in here, so like on the main district site, if you wanted to have a staff directory for all of your instructional services, and then each instructional area wanted their own staff directory, totally possible, because they're all independent of each other, but they all pull from the same data set. So all I have to do is tell the staff directory what users I want to display. Now, you can also exclude users from there. So if there are particular users in those groups that you don't want to include, you don't have to. We strongly encourage email privacy, where instead of physically displaying the user's email address on their profile, the system will, whenever you hit the email button, will open up a box that will they can physically type in an email, and then we will send it on their behalf without ever exposing that message. We see a lot more districts coming to us asking for us for this feature, because there are bots and trolls out there that scrape email addresses off of websites, and so this provides that additional level of security. And then you also have control over what you want to be able to display. A lot of this information can come from Active Directory, things like position, things like location, where they are, and then you can give them the option to fill in this other information based on their user profile. So you can do this in any kind of combination you want. And once that information is displayed, then I can see. You can also give them the option to upload a photo if you want, or we can import those photos. So if you have photos in your database somewhere, we can also import those. But here's that hidden email functionality. So instead of exposing the email address, I can, here's the subject, what's my email, what's my message, and then send, rather than exposing that email address, link to their website. And then even going in more, I can see, here's a link to the blog, here's a link to the website, and then a personal message. I can search by name, by title. I can look at just a particular group in there. So there's a lot of functionality that's built in to that as well.
I'm just going to say
one of the other areas for security are CAPTCHAs. So we do provide CAPTCHAs. This is just one example that we have. It does, it does allow for the generation of new images. I can get an audio code again for accessibility. We can provide that audio code, so we do have that. It's reading I click the button, it's reading it for me. We do have the captions built in, and then if there's a particular type, or if you would prefer, if you have one of your own, some districts have their own, we can certainly support that as well. Translation, we do provide translation, so we have translation services that can be built in. So we can support translation in a lot of different ways. So if I need to translate this site into Spanish, we do utilize Google Translate. There are some other things that we can do. I will show you a current customer, Prince William. Prince William is the largest district in the state of Virginia. They have a very high need for translation. So they've got their translation built in there. But one of the other things we have done for them as well is we have specific pages for them that have important information in that language. So not only can we support the automatic translation, we can support the actual insertion of characters. So something like Arabic, this is their Arabic page. We support the Arabic. If you wanted to, and mine's automatically translating. If you wanted to, we also will support those character insertions as well. So if you wanted to hard write content in a particular language, we can support that either way you want to be able to do that. So lots of different options for translation. Again, for accessibility, we touched a little bit about accessibility. So accessibility and what we talk about in our company is it comes in three parts. One is the design. So our designs out of the box are accessible. They're screen reader accessible. We only use appropriate color contrasting. We only use appropriate link contrasting, sizes and fonts. We handle all of that. The second part of that is the actual physical site itself, so the actual technical side of it. So our portlets are accessible. The site itself is compliant. In fact, we're one of the only providers recognized by the Office of Civil Rights as a preferred provider for those districts who have been sued by OCR, who have got an OCR letter. We are one of the preferred providers. One of the most famous cases of accessibility is Seattle Public Schools, and they were actually sued. And as part of their agreement, they had to find a new provider, and they came to us, and they've been with us ever since because we meet the stringent needs of accessibility. The third area that is content. That's the one thing we can't control. That's on the end users and the district to be able to ensure that the content they're putting in is accessible. Now, that said, we have those controls built in. Being able to require alt text on images. We require tooltips on all URLs. We require headers and labels on all tables whenever a table goes into the site. So we only provide accessible fonts, which you can then, you can set a default on. So there's a lot that you have available to you to be able to control accessibility. And then we provide a lot of that training through there. We have a whole accessibility resource center available to you to be able to how to talk to end users and content creators about accessibility. As I said, our trainers are accessibility certified, so we have them. So they're fully equipped to be able to have those conversations as well. One of the things that I want to make sure we touch on is permissioning. So users we'll work with you to get all your users in, and then the appropriate permissions applied in terms of viewing and editing. You also will have the ability to set those user permissions. The system administrators will be able to do that through the users and groups that they have. So groups can have their own sets of permissions. Users can have their own individual sets of permissions. So permissions can come in lots of different flavors. So say, what are my page permissions? Like, who has the ability to actually edit this page? But it can go even deeper than that into if I want to add a user. So just as an example, I'm going to add Jeremy to this page. And so there's Jeremy. So I'm going to add Jeremy to my website. And, and I like Jeremy, but I don't necessarily trust Jeremy. And so I can control what he can and can't do on my pages. I don't have to give him full control where he can delete everything, where he can change everything around. Right now, he has the ability to see my page, but I'm going to give him the ability to create new content, and I'm going to give him the ability to change any existing content. He does not have the ability to delete anything. He does not have the ability to even create events on calendars. He can only do the things that I specify that he can do on my site. So when he logs in now, he'll have the ability to edit on my pages, but will not have the ability to do anything else. You can also, since I've got a lot of sub pages, what this kind of incoherent sentence here, allow inheritable permissions from parents to propagate to this object, means that I can set these permissions so that it flows down to everything underneath it. So rather than going to every single page and applying those permissions, if I want to give if I want him to be able to edit my top page and all my pages underneath, I can just simply check that box, or I can uncheck it and it will only be that main page. But we can go even further with that. So say something like a calendar. Maybe I've got a calendar. So when I taught middle school, maybe I want when on my middle school team, I taught with 3 other teachers. If we wanted to be able to perhaps say we all wanted to be able to maintain a team calendar, but rather than all of us being assigned to the same site, to the same pages, I can even come in, and most of our portlets have this security tab, which allows me to do permissions straight into that portlet. So rather than giving them permission to the entire page, now I'm just giving them permission to that individual portlet. So in this case, the calendar. So if I want to add a user to be able to create events or delete events or overwrite events, I can do that. But that doesn't necessarily have to be full control. So there's a lot of different ways for permissioning to work across entire sites, all the way down to individual pages, even individual content areas. I have a lot of flexibility, and the district has a lot of flexibility to do that. Now, do we expect everybody to remember how to do that? Absolutely not. If you give let's say your department, one of your English language arts department lead wants to make some changes and they don't know how to do that, they pick up the phone and they call us, and we will walk them through that. We'll verify who they are and we walk them through how to make those changes, because we support every user of our product. It's not just providing that top level support to the district where you have to submit a ticket on behalf of someone else, or the school webmaster has to call your technology folks in order to be able to make some changes. They can come directly to us and ask us questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, to be able to get the answers that they need. So it's not just a matter of, yeah, we support our product, but only in these ways. It's we support our product for everybody for an individual. Even if you have one user who is only able to edit one page, we will support that user when they call us in. There's also the embedded help documentation. Jeremy already mentioned the Resource Central, and then all the virtual training is included there as well. Since we're on calendars, let's quickly hit the calendars. So there's calendars work in a hierarchical. So you'll have a main district calendar, you'll have your main school calendars, and you'll be able to push and pull events across those calendars. One of the really unique things we do with Google is we do two-way syncing with Google Apps calendars. So here I've got a presence calendar that is that's built in, but I'm syncing events from a third part from a Google Calendar, which is right here. So I've got a speaking calendar that I maintain on my own personal website that I've just inserted into my presence calendar, and that is syncing, and that syncs every hour. So it was just synced 2 minutes ago. I've got that. That's a two-way sync, and so what that means is any event that I create in either my presence calendar or my Google Calendar is going to appear in either location. You can also do this as a one-way sync where, hey, I'm just going to be able to view those events from the Google Calendar. So the point there is that you might have users who are heavily invested in Google. They've spent massive amounts of time. You spent massive amounts of time and energy and dollars in training folks how to do those. You don't have to abandon those, and all that simply needs is the URL, the public-facing iCal feed for that calendar to be able to insert it here. That said, you can also embed a calendar. So this is that same calendar. The events from before is simply just embedded below, so we can support that embedding of content. Now on events, I can import events from CSVs or from other locations, or I can hand add events. Those events can, have individual start dates and times. I can have reoccurrence on those. You can select different categories. This will allow parents or viewers of those events to be able to select, just to be able to see all the athletic events or just all the fine arts events. You can have, those can have their own colors. You can add, you can have members of those. We also have event registration built in. So say like you wanted to maintain a professional development calendar, if you don't already have one, you can have a registration. So what's the deadline? How many seats do you have? Do you want those users to be approved? Do you want to enable a waiting list? All of that's built in. Full WYSIWYG editor on the description, even adding in attachments to those events. And then here's where I can publish to other locations. So if I've got an event that I want to push up to the school calendar, I can select that there. Or maybe I want it to go to, a different location. I can select, I want to push this to Allison and Andrew and Heather's calendars, let's say. So not only can we push up or down, you can push sideways. If my calendar, if I'm just, a department person or a teacher, I want to push up to the school calendar, those events have to be approved. So in my calendar, let me get out of this. I've got an approval queue where I can see events that were pushed to me that were approved. These meetings here, the BOE meeting, the recruiter, the OSU, these were all mandatory approved because they came from the school calendar. I have the option in my system to reject these because I'm a system administrator, but I'm not going to do that. Regular users will not see a reject here, but so there's a lot of approving that can happen. So events can be pushed and pulled from multiple locations to be able to populate calendar. So if you set up your district-wide calendar, you want to push that down to everywhere, simply just selecting the calendars by just checking off the hierarchical boxes will fill in all of those calendars automatically without any intervention on the part of that owner of that calendar. Really quickly, analytics. So we support Google Analytics. If you have your own Google Analytics codes, we can support those. If you have them for your individual schools or you have one main one for all, we can support that, however you need to. So we encourage you, if you already have it, to use it to maintain SEO or to maintain, your consistent analytics across from your old site to your new one. So we can support that. We have some reporting built in. There's not a whole lot in terms of analytics because we know that there are better systems that are out there to do that. If you don't have Google Analytics set up, we certainly can set that up for you and give you all of that information. But we do have some internal reporting like content that is, what page types are being used, stale content, those types of things. We have those built in. But in terms of analytics, we would prefer because there are platforms that do it way better for you to be able to use what you've already been using for that. And I think social media. So we support all different types of social media integration. So this is one of our customers, Osceola. So we have, we can provide social buttons. We can also embed the social media content from those locations. So you can see here, we've got a little tab area on their main page for their Twitter and Facebook feed. We also support the embedding of social share buttons. So if you've got content that you want social share buttons used to allow any user to share anything across social media, that's possible there. Some districts like that. A lot of districts would just rather the social media content be displayed in that way, and so we can support that both ways. And then the last one, built for mobile platforms. So our sites are infinitely responsive. This is another one of our customers, Riverside. I'd rather show you a live customer. In this case, Riverside in California. So our sites are infinitely responsive, and so they're natively, built for mobile out of the box. You don't have to, in terms of editing content, there's nothing additional that you have to do to be able to edit for mobile. The content is already edited. It's already set for mobile view. And you can see here, I'll start to pull in there my browser window so you can see the content begins to adjust based on the size of that window of where that content is. So you can see, like down here at the bottom, these 3 boxes will then become, instead of 3 side by side, it'll actually become 1 stacked on top of the other automatically. And even still going in, we're still creating and moving that, manipulating that content around so that when it goes into a full mobile view, it's in one column with a menu right here on the side menu, a flyout menu of the same menu that they had on their full website. Now it's just collapsed automatically. So there's nothing I have to do additional to create mobile content. There's nothing you have to do to create mobile content. No matter what type of design you go through, what type of design you choose, it will be responsive. And it will maintain that responsive. And that's not just the home page. That would be every single page across every single site in the district. So it's not just limited to, some companies will limit it to the top level pages. We're doing it every page, everywhere, for that mobile view. So I think that's everything in category. Did we miss anything in category 1? Jeremy, hold me accountable.
Yeah. Let me add just a couple things to have you show. First of all, We'll talk briefly about search functionality. There are, because I think this was completely missed if I was inaccurate, but search functionality, why don't you just make a comment about that, Stephen, and the options with Google?
Definitely, yeah. So we have embedded search. That search can be, there's a lot that you can do with it. If I'm just going to search in, let's say, instructional object. So the search can be limited to, where you want that information to come from. Whether you want it to come from. So in this case, I've got not only my main district site, but I have an intranet underneath it. I'm not signed in, so I'm not going to see anything that's in the intranet. So no matter what, that content's going to be hidden to me. So I can see where this content is. In this case, this one takes me to a survey. For that. But we also support Google custom search. So if you've already got search set up on your site, we can bring that over and utilize that as well. So we can either use our embedded search, or we can use we can have Google index the site and use a Google search. You lose some of this being able to determine where you want that content to come from if you use the Google, but you can use them in combination. The key to remember about search, though, is that it's all dependent on who I am trying to search that content. So if you do have content that is hidden or is only accessible by signed in or logged in users of a particular group or security level, if I'm just searching from the general public, that content will not appear for me. Even if I know that it exists, it will not appear for me. So objects are restricted in search based on who the user is trying to search for them. So there's some security that's in there. So you're not going to even have to worry about it returning a result and then saying, oh, you don't have access to this. It's not even going to return the result.
Any questions on that? Okay.
So can that search outside of the site to a third party location,
Such
a
as
website? Like if we're hosting our board documents at a different location, can it search?
great question, Stephen. I don't believe it can.
No, we would have to look at, it would all be dependent on the third party site and how it would allow something to crawl into them to be able to do that. Certainly it could be possible. That would be something we would want to take a look at during implementation of how, how you're currently doing it, if there's a way we could replicate it, if there would be a better way for us to be able to do that.
I think
Certainly that would be something we could take a look at during the implementation process.
One of the things we could possibly have as an alternative to that, which also gets to something we want to see from you, is in terms of document management. So what we're really referring to is we have board policies, we have board administrative guidelines. Those are in Neola. It's a separate web-based system, works great for that. And then attached to those administrative guidelines are usually a series of forms. These forms could be, ideally would probably be in a Google Doc. But those forms are good. We're going to be recreating those forms and dumping a bunch and probably creating a couple of new ones. But why don't you speak at this point to how does School Messenger deal with document management, and what would be the preferred type of formatting our documents ought to be in for it to be searchable through our website that you host? Does that make sense?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So we actually have a portlet for document management. We call it a document container, and it sits. It can come in any kind of combination. You can have as many of them as you want across the site. So again, you're not limited to just having one or just one per site, or you can have as many. I could have 12 on a page if I wanted. So just as an example, I have a document container here. And as it so happens, I have just folders as examples for board minutes. And so these would be my folder structure. I can have folders within folders. So you can create this kind of living internal folder structure. It has its own search available on it. So it would search just the objects in this document container. And the documents within don't just have to be documents. They can be things like links to other locations. So if you wanted to provide links to those forms, which I'm going to show you forms here in just a second, you could do that as well. Again, we've got our security built in. So if you wanted to restrict, on the editing side, if you wanted to restrict who can do what, so Andrew, again, I trust Andrew, but not enough to be able to delete anything. So he has the ability to create new folders. He can create new objects in there. He can overwrite objects in there, but he can't delete anything. He certainly doesn't have full control. Again, that propagates to just this document container, just this document container on the page. It also has its own subscription available. So if I want to, as a community member, if I want to be able to subscribe to anytime objects are added to here, I simply, just drop in my email address, what type of email do I want, how frequently do I want it, and the site will send them a notice whenever there's new content in. So these document containers are a great way to do that. Not only do they have their own integrated search, but the objects in here would show up in site-wide search as well. So you've got that available to you as well. One of the other things we have, since you mentioned forms, is we have our own forms engine that allows you to create some of those forms. And Google Forms are great; they do serve their purpose, but there's not a whole lot that you can control on a Google form. Rather, with our forms engine, you can do a lot more with how you want information to be displayed, how you want it formatted when it comes out. So, just as an example, I've got a technical services request. I've got an HTML, so I'm going to design this HTML form. These are my form buttons, so I have a lot of different types of ways to be able to put in content, checkboxes, radio buttons, dialog boxes, all of those sorts of things. But then each of these has their own formatting with what do you want this field called, and do you want a minimum value placed in there? This allows you to actually decide, hey, when the output on this form, comes in, whenever somebody fills out this form, you can have the data set already ready to go to be imported into another location. So if you're looking at, student information data, or if you're, wanting to collect information in that way so that it's formatted to go into the student information system because of the headers that are required, you can set all of that here. You can also set, what you want to do. So there's that security measures that we have with the CAPTCHAs. How do you want after submission? What do you want the data to do? We actually have an option for not saving the data. We had a customer who wanted to have give the community the ability to fill out a form, but they didn't want to do anything with the data. So we added a do not save data option. You can save it to a particular location, attach it to a workflow, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then what do you want them to do afterwards? Who do you want to be notified whenever that is used? And then this form then has its own security on it. So like we looked at before, who can actually use this form? Who can edit this form? You can make it so that you create a form one time and then make it available to, say, your schools. So then your schools would just drag through the portlet. There's a forms portlet. They drag it on the page, select which form they want. Instead of creating that form and then having to distill where that information is coming from, you can actually have it so that the form actually applies to that singular location, so that it's the same form for everybody, but it's just their data. They have just their data that's in there, rather than having one form for everybody and having to distill out that data. And then attached with forms, you have the option to be able to set up what we call enterprise level workflowing. So we have a workflowing tool that's built in that allows you to take that data and automatically do something with it. So for example, so you mentioned like board documents or things like that. FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, is one that this is really, really good for. In fact, a lot of our customers in Florida use the workflow exclusively for FOIA requests. So someone would come out and fill out a FOIA form. They would be asking for a particular, whatever information they're asking for. That we would automatically we would send that person who submitted the form an email thanking them for their request. Here's how long it takes. All that's a form email. That happens automatically. Then in the workflow, it automatically sends the form data to the appropriate FOIA officer, lets them know that they have a new FOIA request, tells them what it is. They gather the documents, and then they actually put it into the workflow as an attachment. And then the workflow then picks it up and automatically attaches it to a form email and sends it out. So rather than all I'm having to do is actually know, okay, here's the documents I need, and then I attach it to the workflow. So then it's all tracked through the workflowing system. In this case, this is an IT service request. So there's an IT service form that we were just looking at. It automatically flags it based on the type of request, turns on a clock. It automatically assigns the task to a user. The user attempts the request. It does some form emails automatically. So this is something that's included. This is not something that I'm showing you that's extra. It's included. It's sitting there. It's something that you can come back and train on anytime you want to and use anytime. You certainly don't have to use it if you don't want to, but I think you'll find as you get into it and you start to train with it, you'll find all these different things, like the field trip request. I have a field trip request one in here that the teacher fills out a field trip form, sends an email. I haven't built it out yet, but it basically would go to the principal for approval. Once the principal approves, it automatically takes the form data and sends it to the various locations for approval. So maybe to the assistant superintendent, maybe to transportation, maybe to food service. It automatically sends that data along those paths automatically. So you have all of that built in. So from documents in the document container that has its own integrated search, all the way up to the forms where you can rebuild your form. You can certainly use your Google forms. That certainly we can embed those. You can certainly use those, or you can rebuild them. And then all the way up to the workflow to even do even more with those forms. We have all of that available for you as well.
Can we go back to the searchable container for a second?
The document container.
What do you?
Jeremy, was that I couldn't quite hear that. Was that a question for me?
Yeah, can you go back to the document container for a moment?
Yeah.
When you say it's searchable, is it searching the actual contents of the document itself, or is it just searching the title of the document?
That's a good question.
Did you
Can
hear
you
that?
repeat that for me, Jeremy?
Yeah, so when we search through the document container, is that also searching the content of the document container or just the title?
So right now, it's not right now. The way that this document container is, as I'm showing it to you today, is only doing title search. By the time your site was to go live, it would do a meta search like that within content. This portlet is scheduled for updating next month. That will include that ability to be able to search within the document.
Now, do you want to mention, we can also link the document container to a Google Drive folder?
Yeah, we can certainly, embed that content and pull it over, you can embed Google folders. I don't know that I have an actual Google folder
Yeah, that's okay.
embedded. Maybe I do. Let me look at my embedded content.
I'm guessing the same would apply though, like it would search.
No, I don't have one embedded, but that certainly is possible. It couldn't go into you could put a link in a document container in one of those folders. So, one of these, if I wanted to put add a link here, I could do that. Files, the files are really, any type of file you want, PDF, Word, whatever you want. But I could include a link to another location here. What do I want to call, what the URL, what the description. So it could be a link out to those folders.
And I think it's important to note here, since we're on the topic of documents and what's included inside of them, we go back to that whole ADA compliance statement. And I obviously, even if I was scanning for documents to be compliant, the PDF that's not readable, I can't make it readable, right? So I made a note to add, so I'm just going to go ahead and add this right now. We do certain things to help you control some of the content that you're putting in, like all text on pictures, only supporting ADA compliant fonts. When it comes to site scanning, a lot of schools use third-party services. And, you've heard of them, Site Improve, Monsito, right? We've partnered, we white label Monsito. It's built into our platform. We've included the pricing in your RFP as an option, right? That goes hand in hand with some analytics tools too, right? So if you're using Google Analytics or you're using a third-party service like that, some of the things that you're looking for are within those platforms. And they're way better than what we have to offer, and it's encouraged in some cases. I know Green Bay, and I won't go into the long background here, but we used to partner with a provider that was super expensive. Schools like Green Bay could only afford to do it for their administration and their high school sites. Just too costly for accessibility scanning. So now we've white labeled Monsito. We've included the pricing. We hope that it can cover the entire district if you want to use it. But, Katie in communications or whoever does that, we know that that's a big responsibility too. It takes a lot of time to actively monitor that all the time. And if you want to add anything on Monsito, Stephen, by all means, feel free. But I did have a note to make sure that I made that comment because accessibility is a huge concern. And whether you want that reporting or not, again, we come to the table with, hey, it's a la carte. Some schools use it, some schools don't. Some superintendents will say, look, we're going to put this in a retainer. And if we ever get a complaint, that goes to my attorneys, and then we deal with it. We're not going to tell you have to do it. Okay. Stephen, anything else you want to add?
Nope, that was you perfectly encapsulated that.
So Stephen, I have a question. You said this is going to be available next month. Some of the pre-instruction I always give to the website to any RFP committee is if it's not live, it never will exist in terms of the evaluation. So they can't necessarily give you credit for that, but I'm going to ask you specifically how sure are you it's coming next month?
I sit on our technical advisory on our back end with our developers, and I never say 100% on anything because there's always we just never know in software development. But I am confident that will be released by the time that your site would be live.
Okay.
All right.
That's good.
Is that everything in category one? Is there anything else in category one? Because I think we were scheduled for 9:30, but I just want to make sure.
Yes, 9:30. I think we're good. We have a hard stop at 9:30. So
You can go a little past.
let me add one more thing here because I think we'll talk about design here in a moment too. But if you just want to pop up a new page, like you're going to create a page or go into the page settings, I just want to point out, I always point this out, the release and expiration schedules, because it's mentioned on time archiving and content based on time frames. Stephen, can you hear me if you go into the page settings or options? And then it's properties or release schedule, right? Whenever you create a page, whenever you're editing a page and at any time, you can select a page. In fact, go create a new page because I think it displays very nicely in that as well. So if you create a new page, we say just a blank content space page. You can, oh, you must have to create it first. This Stevens page, yep, blah, blah, blah. It will give you a release and expiration schedule. So it's very easy to say, hey, don't release this page until next week, or hide this page until next week, or hey, in 6 months, remind me to update this page, or in 6 months, remove the page, move the page, do whatever you want with the page so that it is automating some tasks in the background here. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, one of the things we have are these follow-up tasks. So whenever you create a new page, it's automatically hidden so that you can put content on it. So it doesn't, it's like those old school, like GeoCities under constructions. We want to avoid that at all costs. So the pages, but when you create a new page, it's not yet published. It's in that kind of pause hidden state so that you can get content on there. But once it is published, you've got some follow-up tasks that you can do. Like you can set the release date. So if you want to release it now or release it on a date, if you want to expire it like we've already looked at, you've also got some follow-up tasks you can do. So you can set it to remind you to review it on a certain date. You can set the pages to automatically archive. So rather than just expire, they would actually be removed from, they would actually go into the page archive. You can actually move it to another location on a certain date. So I don't have subsites attached to my site, so there's not much place for me to go, but I could move it to another location. I could, send it to another user site. On what day do I want to do just this page? Do I want to do just the sub pages? So you've got a lot of follow-up tasks that you can do there as well.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so let's pop into design requirements, photo galleries, scroll, link to news pages. Oh,
Yeah, so just a couple call outs here. So all of our sites are responsive. So no matter what kind of design level you go with, no matter what kind of whether you go template or custom or premium custom, whatever it is, they're all going to be responsive. So every site, every page is all responsive. And there's no we don't charge for responsive, so that's included. We do provide custom design services. In fact, this Riverside and Osceola, these are custom design sites. You certainly have the option. We include what's involved in a custom level site. You have more control over where content is, how it looks. Certainly, no matter what type of design you go with, you're going to be able to have your own colors, your own logos, your own branding. That's not just for the district website. That would be for every school site as well. So for example, here in Osceola, we can see their main district site. But if I jump down to one of their schools like Kissimmee Elementary, they have all of their school subsites have the same look and feel, but they're all customized for that school. So they have their own logo, they have their own colors. If I go to Kissimmee Middle, different look and feel, same layout, same content, or same content location, just different look and feel for those schools to give them their own brand identity. So you'll be able to control how you want your site to look. What branding you want, how you want that to look, your colors, your logos. But you're not going to be able to do that for the district, but all the way down to the school sites as well. We know photos are very important. Photo galleries can come in lots of different formats. So like on Riverside, with the design that they use, they've got a large, we call hero images here, automatically scroll. Again, this is all accessible. This is all included in accessibility. These can also include, like they've included an overlay here with a link to additional site, whereas in Osceola, they've just used a just a square area here. We can go even further into those. So say like Montgomery, this is Montgomery, Alabama. Instead of using photos, they actually use live video. This may not come across really well. Jeremy, you can pull this up later on if you want to show this to them. But they use actually embedded video on their site as their photo gallery. So we can support that in a lot of different ways, but not just on the district site or for the main school sites. I mean, we even have a photo banner portlet that allows anybody to create, a photo rotating banner gallery like that. So any user can, take this and, drop it on the page and create a photo banner, by just adding in a couple images, straight into here, even controlling, how you want them to, how you want them to display. Do you want them to be random? What's the speed, the height, all of those things? Do you want to, have them have a URL, what have you? So there's a lot of different options, even just for regular end users. So it's not just the main design of the site, but if I'm a department chair and I've got some really great photos of some recent professional development I've done that I want to put onto my homepage, I can simply drag a banner portlet on there, and I can use that as well. We know news is important, so we have a whole news engine. So that news engine allows me to create news pages that will automatically create the image and the read more. All of this kind of lives right here, but it also would get pushed to the homepage we call news carousel. So as you add new items to the news carousel, old ones will fall off. I can give you a live example of that. So here's this is what Osceola did with their latest news. As they add new news, the old versions drop off. So they have 4 that are visible in there. I think Riverside has their news is right here. So they have kind of a vertical scroller and that I can use, but I can go in and I can read more news. And again, the point is that anytime they add new news, it automatically goes to the scroller on the front page, but also will push off the oldest item from there as well. Doesn't delete it, doesn't archive it, doesn't remove it from the page. It just goes back into their news list that they have here, so it can always be gotten back to. Same thing for schools. So the schools would have their own news area that they would be able to push news to their front page, but you would also get the ability to push news from the district down to the schools as well. So those news rotators on the front pages of those school websites would be able to accept news items sent from the school main website as well. So you can share content in that way as well. Maps and directions. So I didn't think I had any on this site. We have a whole maps and directions portlet. So here's a portlet that I have for maps. And I'm just going to add it to my own page so you can see what that looks like. So add this map portlet. So this is Google Maps. So if I just add this right here, I can set this to whatever primary location I want. Whatever. Right now it's using the server information, but I can set this to whatever address. So 4036 Clarendon Avenue, Salem. So I can set this to just my home location. And 27166 and update, and that will drop a pin right on where I am. And from there, I can, once I'm out of design mode, now I can set this to either view larger, or I can go in and do driving directions on here as well. You can also set up a form to do driving directions. So all of that is built right in. And then with navigation and management, one of the things we'll sit down and do with you is actually talk to you about your current site, how your site is currently navigated, what you like, what you don't like. With over 6,000 websites currently live out there right now, every district, every school does it differently, but we have a lot of experience of looking at that from a lot of different perspectives. And so one of the things we have as part of our project management plan is to actually talk about navigation. What do you want in your hierarchical menus? So like on your main district page, what do you want in your menus? What do those menus say? How many do you have? Even, you probably saw like on this Osceola site, we can do submenus that are, instead of them being vertical, they're horizontal. We call this a mega menu. So, you can see there's not a whole lot of information here, but it's packed with a lot of information. What I mean is, instead of it being a long scrolling list, we've got, it's a more compact way of being able to look at it. We'll help you with navigation and looking at that, maybe even be able to have you look at your data, to what's getting clicked, what's not getting clicked. And then we can also set where the sub-menus at the school location. So here, one of the things we emphasize that's important is that the menus stay consistent from school to school, so that if I have a child in different schools, I can find the information in the same place. So we would make it so these, like say if you did buttons at the top, these buttons would be static. The schools would not be able to change those. Even the menus, the schools would not be able to change. They could add additional pages underneath, but they wouldn't be able to add, they wouldn't be able to actually change what these menus are or their location. If you don't want them to, certainly if you want to give them the option to change that, you would have that ability, but there's a lot that we can do on navigation and setting navigation so that it's consistent, not only for parents, but for the community as well.
Okay. Stephen, thanks. I think that covers category 2. I'm just going to kind of close with category 3 and 4 because I think a lot of that is more cost and implementation based. So when we talk about implementation, should you choose to move forward with WES, we would assign an individual project manager to work with you, who would be kind of the between our design. Of course, you would deal with design if you're dealing with custom development. So that individual person would work just with you at least.
We probably have some custom development, but you're going to find our site. You probably already looked at our site. We would keep it very simplistic.
Okay.
One thing we found out from our community is the actual site map is pretty logical, and you know, we wouldn't go crazy in any of that because we figure simple gets used, and that would be our focal point.
Yeah, I think we did Stephen and I worked with Akron Public Schools in Ohio. Great example of a template-based design. Simple,
Right.
okay? But they're district about the same size as you guys, right? So anyways, that's kind of deployment, handheld by them. Once the website goes live or is about to go live, they hand it off to our training team. We do include content migration from your existing website. So all photos, content, videos, whatever, we'll pull it from your existing site. We only go back a couple of years on certain content. We do not migrate teacher pages. Well, we can for an additional fee, but we also find that if you have teacher pages, sometimes they're quite outdated. We talked about training. I'm not quite certain the licensing. It's unlimited, so as far as use, I think that covers that there. Annual renewals, ongoing hosting, and support is part of our platform. I mean, you guys pay an annual hosting fee. All updates are included in that. So if that release for the document container comes next month, it's already part of your solution. We try not to change the back end, if you will. All right, so your staff don't need to be retrained every single year, but as functionality gets added, you have the ability to kind of flip the switch if you want to add that functionality to the end user. As for any questions, I think that about covers it for the last couple of pages here. I just want to make sure, any questions in regards to those last couple of pages, since I abbreviated quite a bit. I know we have very detailed implementation timelines and training schedules in our RFP.
Right.
But
does anybody have any specific questions or things they want to see?
I'm looking at acronyms right now, and I went to the language tab and clicked on Pashto. Do you know how accurate that the language translator is when it brings up?
Sure. So the question was language translations. We use Google Translate. It's, as far as I know, a paid for version of Google Translate. It's the best out there, but if you've dealt with translations, that's why I don't know if you were in here, I imagine you were. Or
In and out.
In and out. So if you look at Green Bay or Osceola, if you have a translation that you absolutely require, I would take a look at those, and then you can see we can create separate spaces just for those languages, like Green Bay, Somali, right? They have just a page for Somali and the most requested information for Somali. All right. Other questions, quick? I know. Trying to be a hard stop in 30 seconds.
We can go a little fast. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions here?
As far as like a site template and building out a layout, a standard format that the sites would have to live in, they can't change, is that, I don't know if you covered that or not, but is that?
Stephen, can you go to the schoolmessenger.com site and just look at there's really 3 options for design. There's the template, which is the template. It's set out exactly how it's going to be. You get to choose colors. Obviously, if you don't like where the calendar portlet is, we can move that around. We can put a Twitter feed on your homepage, but it's standard. You have the premium custom design. We give you a blank sheet of paper, draw us what you want, okay? We're gonna give you that. The third option is what we call custom design, and everything is designed in a wireframe, if you will, and several wireframes. So you got your header, your body, your footer. A custom design essentially gives you the control of how you want it laid out based on the wireframe options that we have. And I think we've got a few dozen different options. And header, hey, well, how do you want your header set up? How do you want your footer set up? How do you want the body set up? And then there's a lot more control, a lot more options with that custom design level. It's fairly inexpensive to go that route. But even if you chose a template, you said, hey, we want to do a template, but we want to do X. And if it was custom design, we charge like hourly custom design fee or something like. I've only come across that twice in the 4 years that I've been working with customers, and it's really isolated. We can have the conversations and design and determine if what you want ahead of your decision to move forward usually. Okay.
And I'll just add, the Riverside site that I've been showing you, this is that kind of middle level custom. I mean, it's got everything they need. I mean, we can even incorporate, we've got parallax design, like that's included in that. So we've got that image that kind of scrolls slower. At the bottom, they've got this nice rotator of, this nice carousel of, what makes them special. That one is regular custom. Osceola's premium custom. So, you could go the premium custom route, and then they took their premium custom template and used it. They designed a completely separate template for all of their schools. So, there's a lot of flexibility in there to how you want to do that. As Jeremy said, our most popular option is that kind of regular middle tier custom. You get to go into the wireframes and get to kind of choose your layouts of where you want content and how you want it to look. But I think the key takeaway from design, regardless, every 3 years you get free design refresh depending on your design level. So, if you choose template, you get a new template. If you choose custom design or premium design services, you get a certain number of hours to design you a new template. In fact, Osceola just did that. Their template, they just launched this brand new template because they've been with us for over 3 years. They've been with us 3 years, actually longer than that, but just did their free design refresh. So we throw in that design refresh every 3 years for free.
Any other questions? Super. All right. Well, Stephen, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon or this morning. I'll wrap up here. We'll get you disconnected. And if there's additional questions that come up after we hang up, I'll let you know.
Again, I appreciate it. I apologize for not being able to be there in person, but thank you for your time, and you all stay warm and have a wonderful Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
Cool. All right. Super. Well, hey, we made it.